Welcome everybody to 5D University, and today's topic is the Ascension Journey. So we've kind of gone through a lot of the basic understandings of like what is the ascension, the vibrational scale, what are the differences in dimensions, what's the ego, what are the divine traits, what are the tools and techniques for transformation. So we've gotten this really solid foundation. But the ascension journey as a whole is what every human being on the planet is going to have to walk the path of, whether they know it or not. Because Mother Earth herself is ascending. And so it's, interesting because when you tell people about the ascension and, kind of the quantum leap of consciousness that we are experiencing here on Earth, a lot of people will say, oh, that's New Age spirituality, that's a myth, that's a conspiracy theory, all of these sort of things. And what they're missing is that they're not in tune with Mother Earth herself. And so humans have this idea that we are somehow in control of what happens. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. So you have to understand where Mother Earth is at. And the fact is that Mother Earth is damaged, extremely damaged by the density that has occurred on the planet. And she is extremely damaged by the low consciousness and the low vibrations here. And it is not her natural state. It is not her natural state to have anything that is decaying or dying. The natural state of Gaia, the living being in which we reside on, is she's a feminine essence. So she gives life. She sustains life. She births new things into creation. She creates abundance. She creates beauty and majesty and all of these things. So when we see the state of the earth, that tells us everything that we need to know. And the thing that humans don't understand, and that a lot of humanity doesn't understand, is that it's not up to us to fix or change things on a surface level area. We can't just fix surface level problems without fixing the root of the issue. And the root of the issue is that we are not a vibrational match to Mother Earth. Again, she is a divine sovereign being. Every planet is a conscious being. And everything in creation is both self-sustaining, self-healing, and self-correcting. Everything in creation is aligned with source. And source energy is self-sustaining, self-healing, and self-correcting. As humans, because we've been in the mind, we perceive when there's a problem, right, externally, we think we have to come up with a solution to fix the problem, which only leads to more problems. And that's because we don't understand the idea of self-correction and self-healing and self-sustainability. So Mother Earth has to rise up into a higher dimension in order for herself to heal, in order for her to rebalance, in order for her to self-correct what has happened here, where we have a parasitic race, which is humanity, which is a parasitic race to Mother Earth herself. So we don't have control over this. Creation is self-correcting. And so Mother Earth must correct her trajectory, and she must correct her vibrational capacity so that she can heal, so that she can return to her natural state. Because Mother Earth was a fifth dimensional planet, as almost all planets have been, besides the ones that fell into lower dimensions because of the galactic wars, because of this whole battle that has been going on. But within creation, all planets have been fifth dimensional and above, because again, that is where you are self-sustaining. And so she is moving into that space to correct what has been done. We must be in tune with her enough to realize that she is the one leading this ascension, and we are to integrate and adjust to her, not the other way around. So the ascension journey is something that Mother Earth is going through and has been going through, and we too are going to go through it. Humanity must go through the ascension process in order to continue to reside on Mother Earth. It's just that simple. So the ascension journey can start in any different ways. It doesn't matter how it begins for you. Ultimately, everyone will arrive at the same place, right? So some people begin their journey through a spiritual awakening. There's many people who have had spiritual experiences, extra, sensory experiences, anything that was just beyond the normal, beyond the 3D, which kind of wakes them up to the fact that there's more going on than what we've been told. It can also come from the disclosure route, which many of you have come from that route as well. Figuring out that things have not been told to us, and that things have been hidden, that there's been a lot of lies and corruption in the truths that we know, and that they're actually not truth at all. And so we come from this disclosure place of wanting what is the whole truth. There's also people who begin their awakening through healing, right? They have a pain, illness, or disease, and maybe they start going down the route of learning about their body, about holistic healing, about the way that everything affects us, toxins, density, emotions, lower frequencies. And so they start this self-healing journey, which inevitably leads them into more of the spiritual path. So it doesn't really matter where it begins, right? Ultimately, though, there is an event or an experience that triggers our awakening when it is divinely timed. Because remember, we all have unique DNA. We all have unique DNA blueprints. And so our higher selves wrote the plan for us in terms of when we were going to awaken is timed by our DNA and by our unique blueprint and essence that we have. And how that awakening comes about is also going to be unique. So it doesn't matter where it begins, but it always starts with an event or an experience that changes the way we see the world. It just changes it for us, where we can't go back. We can't unsee it. So again, that can start in many different ways. The next part of the journey after that event occurs is normally that we go through a period of time where we are trying to absorb as much information as possible. Again, once you kind of start down the rabbit hole, you keep going until you feel like you have uncovered as much information as you possibly can. And so during that phase is when we typically rise in consciousness very quickly, because no matter which route we began with, it kind of opens us up to a lot of different information, right? We start just learning about all these things that we didn't know about before. And it starts to change the way that we live, and it starts to change the way that we interact. So during that phase, there's always a lot of research, a lot of information going around. And so that is part of the phase. That is part of the awakening journey. Now, there's always a point, and this is where I feel there's a lot of people who have gotten stuck. They've had an awakening, an event or an experience, and they've gone through the process of researching and learning and trying to absorb as much information as they possibly can so that they can develop their own inner discernment about what's true, what resonates with them, etc. But a lot of people have gotten stuck in that information stage. They're in a state of constantly wanting to consume more information. And if you stay stuck in that phase, you will never finish the journey, because you can only absorb so much information, right? And also your discernment levels have not gotten to a place where you can have non-attachment to information, where you're not forming belief systems based on the new information. Because the reason it took so long for this awakening to occur has been because of the ego mind, which creates belief systems and attachment. So we don't want to repeat those patterns. So when we're in the information stage, the absorbing, it's important to stay non-attached to information. And that's a key one of where people are getting stuck. They're getting stuck in consuming more and more and more information, but they have not actually started to do the inner work that is necessary in order to break down belief systems, to be non-attached to information, right? And to learn higher levels of discernment. So if we stay stuck in that phase too long, it ends up creating a lot of stagnation within ourselves, and we end up just developing new belief systems, new attachments to information, when that was the whole point of us awakening, was to break out of the attachment to what we've been told. But instead now we've kind of recreated this just constant consuming of information and being attached to what we are reading or finding or being told. Because the true evolution from the information stage is the inner work stage. So once we start absorbing a lot of information and we start opening ourselves up to learning more and more about everything, right? About the way that our bodies work, about true history as much as we can, right? We start to learn more about how energy works, how there's a lot more going on than we understand. And then you have to start applying that information to doing inner work. And again, that's where I'm seeing a lot of beings get stuck. They're stuck in information and consuming. They're not moving on to the stage of inner work. And this is why we are very adamant that you have to eventually move into that stage. And the inner work is the dissolvement of the ego, right? It's being aware of the programmings and how they function and working to dissolve them. It is about embodying the divine traits of a God self, because that is the inner work that we do to embody our higher self. And it is also the disciplines, right? We have to start incorporating self-love disciplines, tools and techniques, spiritual disciplines into our daily life, which starts to get us to the point where we start embodying the higher self. We have better discernment. We are no longer kind of attached to the information as much as we use it to confirm something, or we use it to give us an insight, or something to kind of take into consideration, but we're not attached to it. And we're developing, our intuition and our heart center, which is the key to moving through this ascension process. The inner work must be done, because you can have all the information in the world, but if you haven't started to practically apply that to your life, then again, you're stuck in the old 3D paradigm, which is just learning, memorizing, and regurgitating information without actually having lived it or done it or had some sort of practical application. So the inner work phase takes time. We have seen that as more and more people wake up, the time it takes to kind of go through this journey is getting shorter. So that's a positive, but it also has to be, you have to walk the path. You have to go through the experiences to get, through to the end. It's like you can't stop halfway. So once the inner work begins, that's when a lot of people either stop or they never even enter that phase because it's uncomfortable. That is the phase where you are ripping off the Band-Aids, you are facing the wounds that you have, you are facing the programmings that you've developed, your own belief systems, right? Your own attachment to things, and you start healing and you start unpacking everything that has been programmed. And this usually causes us to have, we stop resonating with the same things that we always resonated with. So this is usually a period where we do feel quite isolated. And many of you have probably experienced this. You do feel a little bit isolated because you have to be with yourself. We have to be reacquainted with who we are inside. We have to do reflections and inner work and contemplations and releasing. And this takes time. And so a lot of times we do end up being a little bit isolated because We have to pull back from all the distractions and the interference from the outside so that we can really get to the core of who we are. We can really start to let go and unpack a lot of the things that we've held on to, as well as what's in our DNA and in our generational line. So this inner work portion never really stops, but the major work that gets done will happen within that time period. And patience with yourself is key. And then you get to a point where you've done a lot of the inner work. And this is when people usually start to feel like they're kind of ready to come out of that isolated stage. And again, people get stuck at this level too, right? They get kind of, I would say, attached to the inner work and healing phase. Because again, healing is ongoing and inner work is ongoing, right? It's going to keep going throughout the rest of the journey. It's just not going to be such a focus, and it's not going to be the majority of what you do anymore, but it's going to be an integral part still of how we progress. But a lot of people get stuck in being just kind of overly focused on the inner work and the healing to the point where they've been doing it for years and years and years, and they still feel like, oh, I still have more shadow work to do. I still have more healing to do. And of course, again, there's always healing to be done. There's always more inner work. But it can't be the sole focus, because then you're just starting to try to find things to fix. You're starting to over focus on what you need to heal and what you need to, which only makes it bigger, which only makes it more prevalent. So at a certain point, when you know that you've gone through a significant amount of inner work, you can feel the changes within you. At this stage, that's where we recommend, that's the ego work, that's the divine trait embodiments, those are the self-love disciplines and techniques. That's the core of that phase. And then when you know that you've made a lot of changes internally, you will start noticing how you respond rather than react to things. You will notice how you feel a lot more in the present moment of now. You're much more trusting. You can start to see how you're not embodying the same programmings and lower behavior that you were before, and you really feel the change within yourself. And then you move into the stage of service. So again, there's a lot of beings who are tinkering on that and have not yet moved into the stage of service. And the stage of service to others is where you bring all the experiences that you've had thus far on your awakening, and you start sharing it with others. You start helping others who maybe are just beginning their journeys, or maybe they're just at an earlier stage, and you start really serving others in the best way that you can. This is the path of love. That's what the Ascension Journey is. So when you move into the service to others, a lot of people, I think, are hesitant to move into that stage because they feel like they don't know enough. They don't have enough wisdoms. They feel like they still aren't healed. And so they can't help others. And that, again, is all just part of the mind's programming, because it's not like we're moving into service and saying, I have all the answers and this is the only way to do it. It's bringing your experience and your journey into what you help share with others, because we all are interconnected. So we all are going to relate to each other in different ways. So what you've been through as far as your experience, awakening, learning about different truths, then embodying that and actually doing the inner work and applying it, those are going to help. Those experiences are going to help somebody else who's on that same path, who has similar experiences, who has had similar challenges as you. And if we are in service to others, we are just looking to share with others what was helpful to us and what wasn't, right? And then the service to others, again, continues on for the rest of the journey. So all of these stages are always continuing. Even in the beginning, the new information, the absorbing of new truths, that will go on throughout the rest of the journey as well. It's just going to look different. So in the service to others phase is when most people make the leap out of 3D, meaning a lot of people get to this stage that even if they are still invested or working in the 3D systems, they are also utilizing their time for service to others in some capacity, right? But many people during that phase end up leaving the system completely and kind of dedicating themselves to to the service, whatever that may be. That could be teaching and sharing with others. That could be, trying to serve others in the community by different passion projects that you have, or humanitarian projects that you have, of course. So there's many different ways to be in service to others, to be in service to love, period. And that service to love phase then kind of morphs into the mastery phase. And the mastery phase is not the end of the journey, because there truly is no end to the journey. I think the mastery phase is where we enter the unknown period. And this is the period where you've learned all that you can in terms of the information that is present in our reality that we can actually obtain. And we have done the inner work. We have applied the principles. We have been in service to others. And then we reach a place of mastery where we really are stepping into the being God with God, which means that we now obtain most of our information through the heart, from our connection to Source, the Divine Mother. Most of our information now comes from there, because there's no longer information in the 3D realm that is even relevant at that phase. It's interesting, or it can provide, again, confirms, and it can provide you insight into what is happening on the collective level, but it's no longer relevant to your personal journey. All the information now comes from above, from the higher. And the mastery phase, you step into then starting to cultivate your own unique blueprint. What are you here to give the world? What are your passions? What are your gifts? Having a high level of trust in oneself. And you just become this very organic being where you can play any role, right? You can help teach others. You can be in service. You can also, withdraw sometimes to do some more inner work. You're able to relate to anyone of any consciousness level, regardless of whether they're asleep or awake. It doesn't matter anymore. The mastery level, the unknown level, is where we then now dissolve the duality. We stop seeing things as good or bad, black or white, right or wrong, and we just start embodying Source energy, and we start sharing and emanating that Source energy so that we can play any role we need to play. We can, kind of maneuver and navigate the unknown because we have the tools, we have a solid foundation, we have our connection to Source, and we basically just follow the unknown. We are following divine will at that point. We are doing whatever the divine will is asking us to do. We are doing whatever the divine will is urging us through our heart, through our passion, through our excitement to do. And you enter a whole different space. And again, that's not the destination point, because the unknown is the unknown. And so we don't know what comes after that, because we're in it right now and we don't know how it's going to look. I feel, probably the co-creative phase will come with that, where we all start actually co-creating the new earth together as God with God, having our spiritual abilities, having all of our human potential able to be utilized for the highest good. So those are kind of the phases that we can mark right now in the current process, right? We don't know, again, how the next processes are going to go, because we're still in the unfoldment. But we know that there is about 4 stages currently that we can experience, which is the awakening phase, which, can last a little bit of time too. Just depends how long it takes us to kind of start clicking things together. Then we have the information stage, the absorbing of new information. Then we have the integration stage, or the embodiment stage, where we actually start doing the inner work applying the principles and the tools and techniques and the self-love disciplines that we've learned, or we start applying the things that we are learning about into our daily life, we start embodying these higher qualities. And then we move into the service to others, where we start sharing that with others and doing what we can to help awaken others, right? And then we move on to the mastery phase, which again is very unknown, but it allows us more freedom into where we can easily change roles. We are now under divine will. We're no longer kind of trying to figure it all out. We're no longer asking for proof and questions and trying to analyze everything. And, we're not attached to anything. So we are simply now light holders for those who are walking the path. And again, now we may shift into a totally new phase. So that is right now the path of the ascension. And more phases will unfold as we keep, evolving and unfolding. But for many of you, I feel understanding the different stages so that we can understand how the flow of the awakening is supposed to go. Because what we're seeing is that a lot of the waivers are getting stuck at various stages and not actually progressing on to the next stage. So there are going to be a lot of catalysts and a lot of just different experiences for each one of us uniquely that pushes us into the next phase. But it's good to just have the understanding of that's kind of the flow of it. And we can't skip steps and we can't jump phases. And they all eventually kind of blend into one, which is just our organic state of being. So no matter where you are in those stages, it's also not a rush, but I feel it's just important for us all to kind of understand that flow so that if we do feel we're getting stagnant, or we do feel like all of a sudden things are just not working the way they used to, we're kind of hitting that wall or that plateau, then it might be time that we feel into the evolution to the next stage. And that this is typically a very organic thing, but I think sometimes we miss the catalyst, or we miss the events that are actually meant to, evolutionize us to the next phase, and we kind of miss the point of them and we don't really get it, and we keep trying to do the same things we did before, and it no longer works because we've expanded, and so now we have to expand into a new level. So also helpful to understand how all the deep sleepers are going to progress through these stages. These stages are not necessarily linear, but they just tend to happen in that way, because it's really hard for someone to, let's say, jump into the stage of service to others when they haven't done the inner work, because serving others, and there's so many amazing things that humans are doing to help others and to help humanity. But without the inner work being done, the frequency of that service is different. And so the frequency of that service is not the highest that it could be had the inner work been done prior to doing that service, right? So the best example I have of that is that there's a lot of people who they want to help others, and which we all do innately, but they really want to help others and be in service, but they may be on surface level things like, oh, I want to save the ocean, or I want to save the animals, or I want to assist people in poverty. All of those are great ideas, but without the inner work being done, that can easily turn into belief systems, that can easily turn into savior programming. It can easily turn into guilt, like we're actually doing this service out of guilt rather than empowerment. There's so many energetics at play. So that's why it's not necessarily linear, but it does tend to flow that way of information, inner work, service, mastery. Because if we typically go out of that order, we're going to not be able to complete those stages in the highest capacity. So, and again, these may come back around at different times in your journey. So that can happen. You know, you go through the different cycles. But each cycle is unique, and each cycle is meant to kind of bring us to a higher level of embodiment. So for those of you who we're all in different stages, and that's okay. There's no rush. And it also now can make more sense of why we can't push others into a stage faster than they're ready, right? Because that would essentially, they would have to go back and repeat things. So every soul knows the divine timing of when they're ready to pass on to the next phase and the next phase. And this is why we have different waves of consciousness. It's to balance it all out so that we're not all in the same phase at the same time, because that would be challenging if there was no one on the next stage to kind of set that foundation for more to move into. So right now, a lot of the first wavers are in the mastery phase. Basically, just we're trying to master the unknown, the present moment of now, purely being in the present moment of now, with no belief systems, with no duality, not acting from the mind, but acting from the heart, in order to solidify and kind of set that foundation for the rest of the wavers who are looking to now move up. And because the more of us who exist in that frequency of the pure present moment of now, the more seamless the transition to New Earth can be, especially as Mother Earth is going to go through, you know, a little bit of ups and downs and ebbs and flows with her journey of healing, and we're all moving with her. And so sometimes this is going to feel like it's moving faster than we can keep up with, and then other times it's going to feel like it's moving so slow, and that's all just the balance of the ebbs and the flows, because Gaia herself knows the consciousness, and she knows when to speed up and when to slow down. That's the natural rhythm of the universe, of the creator, that, you know, the earth intrinsically knows. So we just have to trust the timing of Mother Earth, and we have to trust the timing of ourselves and our DNA, and know when it's time and we get activated and we expand, it's the perfect time. So if things feel slower sometimes and you wish they would speed up, keep trusting the divine timing. If there's moments where it feels like it's moving faster than you can keep up with, that's also divine. So thank you guys for sharing with what resonates with you. For those looking for more resources to kind of help you on your journey wherever you're at in the stages, please check out our home website at 5dfulldisclosure.org on the library tab. And there's plenty of resources to help you with wherever you're at in terms of stages. And anybody who's looking for more one-on-one and personal help and guidance, you can always book a session with us. I love you guys, and I will be back soon.